Princess Charlotte seemed a bit uncertain on her first day, doing her best to hide behind Kate's skirt.
It's been obviously fantastic, and she's been a little joy of heaven, but at the same time it's more responsibility looking after two little ones.
He thought he was just mocking another schoolgirl until he realized her father, Prince William, had been watching the whole time. It started like a normal Saturday morning. Princess Charlotte had been looking forward to this day all week. Her school, Lambrook, had arranged a regional inter-school equestrian showcase.
You do wonder what they say to them ahead of a moment like this, and if Mum and Dad are actually more nervous. With the cameras watching, George, Louis and Charlotte did seem on best behaviour.
Charlotte had recently become more involved in riding, something she shared in common with her great-grandmother, the late Queen Elizabeth, and her mother, Princess Catherine. She was excited, but also a little nervous, not about the competition itself, but about the attention that always seemed to follow her. Prince William had driven her there himself. With Kate still recovering at home, William had taken the whole weekend off. He kept things low-key. No security detail in sight, just one unmarked Land Rover some distance away, and a father who wanted his daughter to feel normal, at least for a day. He wore a cap and sunglasses, but even without them, most of the parents were too focused on their children to care who he was. Charlotte stepped into the small stable area in her riding boots and helmet. The school had paired her with a calm pony named Amber, one she had trained with for weeks. She patted the pony gently and smiled at one of her teammates from Lambrook, but not everyone returned that smile. Near the corner of the paddock stood a group of older boys from another prep school. Most were already done with their warm-ups.
The head teacher said in a statement released back in May, "We are delighted that the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have decided that Princess Charlotte will join her brother Prince George."
They stood clustered around one of their team's horses, laughing and pointing. One of them, tall and broad for his age, leaned over the rail and whispered to the others. Then, without warning, he spoke loud enough for Charlotte to hear. "Must be easy winning medals when you're born with a crown," he said, not even pretending to hide his voice. Charlotte heard it. Everyone nearby did. She kept her eyes on Amber and tried to ignore it, but the boy wasn't finished. "Better pony cost more than my house," he added. "Or maybe the judges are told to clap for her. Right, princess?" The last part stung. The way he said princess wasn't respectful. It was mocking. Charlotte said nothing, but her jaw tightened. A few other kids turned to look, unsure of how to react. Some laughed, not because it was funny, but because they didn't want to be next. One of Charlotte's teammates moved closer and tried to distract her. "Let's go check the starting list," she said softly. Charlotte nodded and walked away, but the moment stayed with her. She felt something twist in her chest, like a small ball of heat. She didn't know it yet, but Prince William, who had been standing behind a low line of trees just beyond the practice area, had watched the exchange. He hadn't planned to hover, but he always kept a close eye whenever his children were around unfamiliar faces. He didn't make a move right away. He simply stood there, jaw set, arms folded, and waited. Back in the tent where competitors waited for their turn, Charlotte sat on a fold-out bench, brushing Amber's mane with slow, steady strokes. She wasn't crying, but the excitement she'd felt earlier was gone. She felt embarrassed and felt small. Then William entered and sat beside her. "I saw what happened," he said after a moment. Charlotte kept brushing. "I didn't say anything back," she said quickly, not sure if that would disappoint him. William gave a soft smile. "I'm proud that you didn't," he said, "but I also don't want you to carry it around like it's true." Charlotte looked at him. "It's just because I'm me," he nodded. "Yes. And some people won't like that because they think it's unfair. But you being strong and kind and focused, that's yours. Nobody gave you that. You earned it." Charlotte's shoulders relaxed just a little. She nodded slowly. Back outside, the same boy who'd mocked her earlier was still near the paddock. His name was Lucas, and he was the type who liked attention. A few other students were gathered around him, laughing as he bragged about last year's trophies and how he expected to win again today. Then William walked out from behind the tent, still wearing the cap and sunglasses, but now fully visible. He made his way past the row of spectators and stopped a few feet from the group of boys. He didn't raise his voice or call anyone out by name. but he spoke clearly. "Events like this are about teamwork," he said, looking at no one and everyone at the same time. "Not about showing off, and certainly not about tearing others down." The laughter stopped. Even Lucas went quiet. He hadn't realized who had been nearby. "Especially," William continued, "when someone is trying their best and hasn't done a thing to deserve that kind of behavior." He didn't say more. He turned and walked back toward the stable tent, leaving behind a silence that settled deep into the group. Lucas shifted uncomfortably. For once, he didn't have anything to say. Meanwhile, Charlotte's name was being called for her round. She stood up, helmet fastened tight, eyes forward. "Keep watching," because what happened next caught even William by surprise. Charlotte gripped the reins as she walked Amber to the starting line. Her hands were steady now. William's words had settled her nerves, but something else had changed too. She wasn't just riding for the ribbon anymore. She was riding for herself, to prove that she belonged, not because of her title, but because she'd trained hard for this. A hush fell over the arena as the announcer called her name. Next up, representing Lambrook School, we have Charlotte Cambridge. They always use that surname in school events. No one said princess here. Still, every eye in the crowd turned toward her. Some were curious, some indifferent, and a few, like Lucas, still watched with folded arms and smug expressions. Charlotte mounted Amber with a smooth, practiced swing and sat tall in the saddle. She looked focused, even though her heart thudded in her chest. William stood near the boundary, far enough to give her space, but close enough to meet her eyes when she looked toward him. She gave a small nod, then looked forward and took off. Amber moved confidently under her. They made it past the first jump cleanly, then the second, then the third. The rhythm was tight. Charlotte kept her balance, leaned at the right angles, and used her legs to guide Amber gently but firmly. Halfway through the course, she caught a glimpse of Lucas, still watching from the side. He wasn't laughing anymore. His jaw was clenched, and his arms were no longer folded. He was watching every move she made. By the final stretch, even the older students had grown quiet. Charlotte cleared the last jump and brought Amber to a smooth stop. A brief silence followed. Then came applause, honest, surprised, and even a little impressed. Charlotte dismounted and led Amber back toward the holding area. One of the judges approached her and handed her a small red ribbon. "Excellent control," the woman said. "Well done." Charlotte gave a polite nod and whispered a thank you, trying not to show the growing smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. She didn't need to win the top prize. This ribbon meant more than any medal. It meant someone had seen her. Not her name or family, just her effort. As she walked back to the tent, she passed by Lucas. He didn't say a word. Not a smirk, not a sarcastic jab. Just a glance downward and a shuffle of his feet. William met her near the side entrance and took the reins from her gently. "That was some ride," he said with a soft grin. Charlotte's eyes sparkled. "Did you see the last jump?" "Every second," he replied. "You didn't just ride well. You led with your head up." She beamed. "I didn't think I could do it after what he said." William crouched slightly to meet her eyes. "The world won't always be kind, but you get to choose who you are. You don't let people like that tell your story." Charlotte gave a small, firm nod. Later in the day, after all the riders had gone, the event organizers gathered everyone under a large white canopy to announce awards and recognitions. William stood in the background, mostly unnoticed now that most parents had turned their focus to the stage. As expected, Lucas won second place overall in the age bracket above Charlotte's. He took the stage, accepted the ribbon, and looked around the crowd. When his eyes landed on Charlotte, something shifted, maybe guilt, maybe embarrassment, but he didn't hold her gaze for long. Charlotte was recognized for her performance in her category. The announcer mentioned her by the school name again, avoiding any royal title. But this time, when her name was read, the applause was louder. She walked up and accepted her ribbon with grace. There was no bow, no curtsy, just a proud young girl holding her head high. After the event, children and parents milled about near the refreshment stands. William moved toward the edge of the group, hoping to slip away with Charlotte before too many people realized who they were. But just as they reached the car, A voice called out, "Wait!" They turned. It was Lucas. He looked unsure of himself. His blazer was wrinkled, and his tie hung loose. He approached slowly. William didn't speak, but his posture stayed protective. Lucas looked at Charlotte. "I shouldn't have said those things," he muttered. "I was trying to be funny. I guess I wasn't." Charlotte didn't respond right away. She looked at her father, then back at Lucas. "Why did you do it?" she asked, calmly. Lucas hesitated. "Because you're you. Everyone watches you. And I guess I thought if I made a joke, people would look at me instead." Charlotte blinked. "It didn't feel like a joke." "I know," he said. "I'm sorry." William studied him for a moment. "That's a start," he said plainly. Lucas turned and walked back toward the crowd, slower than before. Charlotte looked up at her dad. "I didn't expect that." "Sometimes," William said, opening the car door for her, "people just need a chance to grow up a little." Charlotte climbed in. As William rounded to the driver's side, a light drizzle began to fall across the car's windshield. The ride home was peaceful. No music, no noise, just the soft rhythm of tires on wet roads and a calm between father and daughter that didn't need words. But what neither of them knew was that this wasn't the last time Charlotte would have to stand her ground. Back at Adelaide Cottage, the sun was slipping low behind the trees, casting long shadows over the gravel path. Charlotte didn't talk much after dinner, but her face told the story. She was proud, but thoughtful. William watched her from the kitchen doorway for a moment before walking in with 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She took hers with a thank you, then looked up. "You think he meant it?" William sat down beside her and took a slow sip. "I think it's easier to say sorry once someone sees who you really are." Charlotte nodded. "I didn't like the way it felt, being laughed at." "I know," he said softly. "It's something I've had to live with too. You remember that? Next time someone tries it, you're not alone." It was true. William had seen his fair share of headlines, jeers, and unwanted attention. From his school days at Eton to his early years in the public eye, he knew what it meant to be misunderstood by people who didn't care to look deeper. And now he was watching history repeat itself with his own daughter. The next few weeks passed. Charlotte returned to school and settled back into her routine. Lambrook did a good job at shielding its students from the outside world, but kids still talked. A few students had seen what happened at the equestrian event. Some congratulated her. Others said nothing at all, unsure if they were allowed to. One afternoon, Charlotte was at the school library working on a group project. 2 other girls sat with her at the same table, flipping through pages of geography maps. They were friendly mostly. One of them, Ella, had been in the same class with Charlotte since year 3. She was smart, always top in maths, and sometimes a little too proud of it. "I heard you saw Prince William speak to someone at the show jumping thing," Ella said suddenly, eyes still on her book. Charlotte paused, unsure if this was friendly curiosity or something else. "He wasn't mad or anything," she said. "He just said what needed to be said." Ella glanced sideways. "It must be nice having your dad tell people off." The other girl at the table snorted softly. Charlotte felt that same heat in her chest, but she said nothing and went back to her map. Later that evening, back at home, she mentioned it in passing to William. He listened carefully, nodding as she explained. "She didn't say anything awful," Charlotte added, "but it felt like she was trying to remind me I'm different." "You are different," William said. "But that doesn't mean you're better or worse than anyone else. It just means you have to know who you are before others try to tell you." Charlotte frowned. "Sometimes I wish I wasn't royal." William leaned forward. "I know that feeling too. But then I remember, being royal doesn't define me. How I treat people, how I handle tough days, how I show up for others. That's who I am." Charlotte sat with that for a long moment. She didn't say anything more, but she seemed to hear it. The following Friday, the school hosted its annual charity fair. Students could sign up for activities, run booths, or join short performances. Charlotte had helped with a reading stall the year before, but this time she wanted to do something different. She asked to join the skit group, short performances, done in front of parents and visitors. Most of the kids in the group were older, Ella was one of them. Rehearsal started in the main hall after classes. Charlotte showed up early, script in hand, ready to work. She kept her head down and followed instructions. She didn't want to be treated special, but halfway through the second rehearsal, things shifted again. The group was practicing a funny sketch where each student had to act out a small part. Charlotte had been given a supporting role. Nothing flashy, but she liked it. During one scene, as she walked to center stage to deliver her line, Ella let out a loud whisper from the side. "Maybe we should all curtsy first." A few kids laughed. Not loud, but enough for Charlotte to hear it. She froze for half a second, then continued her line, pretending not to notice. But William was there again. He'd been invited for visit by the head of school, just to observe. He stood at the back of the hall, unnoticed by most, watching through the open doors. And he'd heard it. He waited until the rehearsal ended and students filed out to their next class. Then he stepped inside. Ella was still packing her bag when he approached. "Excuse me," William said calmly. "Do you have a moment?" Ella si congelo. She turned and looked up at him, eyes wide. She hadn't realized he was there. No one had. "Yes, sir," she said quickly. "I heard your comment earlier," he said. "I know sometimes jokes can seem harmless, but they can also chip away at someone, especially if they're trying to fit in." "I didn't mean it badly," she said, voice small now. William nodded. "I believe you, but I want you to know that words carry weight, especially when they come from someone who others follow." Ella looked down, embarrassed. William didn't raise his voice or shame her, but his words sank in. He looked toward the doorway where Charlotte now stood silently, having heard most of it. She didn't smile, but she felt seen again. But what happened next, outside of school grounds, would make everything feel much more real. It was supposed to be a calm Saturday. Families gathered near Windsor Farm Shop for a school charity fun run. The farm shop was buzzing with families, kids in trainers, and volunteers in bright vests. The school charity fun run had brought out students from Lambrook and nearby prep schools. It was a fundraiser to support children's hospitals. Charlotte had insisted on taking part. She liked running, and she liked doing something that helped others. William agreed to bring her himself. He stood near the stalls, dressed casually, handing out water bottles alongside other parents. Most people didn't notice him. He preferred it that way. Charlotte blended in, too. She wore a cap, her school's joggers, and a pinned race number. The morning air was cool, perfect for running. Then came Lucas. He wasn't running, but he showed up with his older cousin, a student from Wellington College. The cousin, tall and loud, spotted Charlotte within minutes. He leaned toward Lucas with a crooked smile. "Is that her? The little royal?" he asked. Lucas gave a slight nod, unsure of where this was going. "Better let her win," the cousin laughed. "You know, for national pride or something." Some nearby kids giggled. Charlotte heard it. Her eyes didn't move, but her back straightened slightly. The tone felt too familiar, sarcastic, and cutting. William stood farther back, watching from the tree line. He heard every word. The cousin wasn't finished. "I wonder if she gets a crown at the finish line. Wouldn't want to upset the monarchy." Lucas gave a weak chuckle. Charlotte stayed silent. But William was already walking over. He stepped up beside the group, his voice low and steady. "Do you know who I am?" he asked the cousin. The boy blinked. Yes, sir." William nodded. "Then you know I'm not here with the security team. I'm here as a dad." The cousin said nothing. William continued calmly. "You don't have to respect titles, but you will respect effort. These kids showed up for a good cause. Let them run without the noise." Lucas stood frozen, eyes wide. The cousin backed off, mumbling something that resembled an apology. William didn't linger. He turned and walked back to the side path. The race began minutes later. Charlotte ran from the middle of the group. She was trying to just finish strong. She kept her pace, breathing in rhythm, shoes crunching over the path. Lucas stood by, watching. Then something surprising happened, and he joined the race. He didn't run to win. He caught up with Charlotte and jogged beside her near the halfway mark. "You're quick," he said between breaths. Charlotte looked at him. "So are you." They didn't say much more. They just kept running, side by side, until they crossed the finish line together. William clapped from the side, his face unreadable but clearly watching. After the race, Charlotte sat beneath a tree, sipping water. Lucas walked over. His cousin was nowhere in sight. "I didn't know he'd say all that," he said awkwardly. "You could have stopped him." Charlotte replied, "I should have." There was a pause. "Thanks for running with me," she said finally. Lucas smiled, small and sheepish. "You're actually not bad," Charlotte smirked. "Took you long enough to notice." Later that evening at Adelaide Cottage, Charlotte laid the folded race shirt on her bed. William stepped in holding a local paper. On the front page, a photo showed two kids crossing a finish line together. No titles, no headlines, just a picture. "They used this one," he said. Charlotte smiled softly. William sat on the edge of her bed. "You handled today better than most grown-ups would." She shrugged. "I didn't really do anything. You didn't let someone else define you. That's not nothing, Charlotte." She looked at the photo again. "Do you think this kind of stuff will keep happening?" "Maybe," he said. "But every time it does, you'll be stronger than the time before." She paused. "Will you always be there?" "Always close enough." There were no medals in her room that night. Just a folded shirt, a photo, and a memory of standing her ground. And somewhere beyond the royal titles, that was more than enough. What do you think? Did Charlotte handle it better than most adults would? And would you have done the same if you were in William's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to know what stood out to you most in this story. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.